Good evening to you all from all corners of the world, from all the corners of Soweto, Johannesburg, Gauteng, and Africa at large. Welcome to Sakum's restaurant, where you can get proper, and I really mean proper home-cooked meals, proper traditional South African food. Welcome to the Selomake Kancube Foundation's Fathers and Sons Conversation on Gender-Based Violence during the 16 days of activism for no violence against women. Please follow us on on the hashtags on Twitter, hashtag MKN_Sons Changing Attitude, hashtag MK_Sons Change is Possible, hashtag MKN_Sons Do Good to Be Good. Commit daily to change behavior, to change your behavior. Today, our guest is Mmusi Maimane, and we are going to be talking about how to start imagining an ideal society without gender-based violence. Mmusi, I'm doing these conversations with my sons. This is my eldest son, Neo. This is my fourth child and third son, Lindo. And I just thought, it is so important during this period to start having conversations with our children, with our sons, and because our sons are the future men. And if we don't pass on the DNA of good social behavior, we know what is it that we are going to get. Some of us, where that thing was not passed on to us.
Sure.
And we really need to start recreating a DNA of good social behavior. When we look at our society, you realize what is some work, and not just some serious work, has got to be done.
Yeah.
What is your take, Mmusi?
No, well, it's great. It's great. It's great to be here at Kosakumzi, one of my favorite places to come to for all South Africans. And I look forward to the day where I can bring my son, because they consume alcohol here. It's too little to bring. If I brought him here, it would contribute to the problem, not help the problem. So one day when he's of drinking age and he's 18, I will certainly be here to make sure that at least we can have a dialogue. And Brasilo, I celebrate the work that you are doing. I think it's important for South Africans like yourself, who Mudimu saw it fit to give you platform, give you a powerful voice. I think South Africa's favorite voice and favorite face.
Thank you.
And God has given you that platform to be able to help shape what I think society needs to have a conversation with. So it's my great honor and privilege to be here tonight. But I think, in thinking deeply about the subject, it's not an accident that we are having it in Soweto.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because sometimes we need to reinterrogate the history of Soweto. Soweto, the southwest township of Johannesburg was established precisely to sit on the periphery of mining in Goli. And no one can deny the fact of the contribution of mining to the fragmentation of our society. I think and part of it is not just a history of apartheid, it's a history of colonial history, where men were requested in their numbers to leave home, forget their families, and to come and live here in hostels. You can't deny Meadowlands Hostel, you can't deny Dobsonville hostels, you can't deny those hostels. What those hostels did is they took fathers from sons. And what they furthermore did is they allowed our society to say, when we're dealing with a different crisis, in the discovery of the HIV virus in the late 70s, early 80s, and the spread thereof in the 90s meant that all you needed to do was to get an infected prostitute in the middle of those hostels, and it would spread like wildfire. Tonight, the conversation is about gender-based violence, and whether I like it or not, the wound of the African son and in our nation is the fact that for many of them, they were raised without the presence of a father. Partly because of the economics, but also equally so because of the politics. We are in the same street where legends like President Mandela spent much of their time. But what cannot be deniable is the fact that even within their own family structures, Ndate Mandela wasn't there with their own kids. Why I raise that as a starting point is that when you compare it statistically, for an African child, the percentage of children growing up with both parents, that number sits below 30%. For white children, that number sits close to about 70%. Now, it doesn't mean that violence doesn't take place in white homes. All it simply means is that the transferring of values generationally is far easier in that context than it is in an African child's context. That's one. And the second issue is the economics behind it. You can't deny, Jorge, when fathers left to come and work within a mining context where they earned insufficient money, that poverty became part of the fabric of society. It means our mothers and women in this country had to give up their right to be educated so that they can raise children. Now, let's imagine what that family looks like. It means globally, if you want to empower a society, empower women. South Africa, we have a history of men not being at home, disempowered women. You have economic problems in the fact that many people are not earning enough money. So a pregnant woman, if you go to communities like the Northern Cape, etc., you can't deny alcohol played its factor. I come back to the issue of mining again, because people were being paid with alcohol.
Yeah.
So now you are describing, so let's talk, when we talk about a typical home, we're talking of a home where the father is not there, the mother is having to work hard, alcohol is a feature of society. Those combinations together naturally are going to result in violence. So when we want to fix our society,
Yes.
let's ask ourselves, what are we doing about helping men stay at home? Even today, even right now as we speak, more than half the children who are registered at Home Affairs at birth are born to single mothers. When a person makes someone, of the females who are there, many of them have got children. When you ask the question, where are the fathers around here? They are not around. So the net consequence of that issue is that you've got mothers raising children, young boys not being at home. We are replicating that thing of absent fathers. And the natural effect of that, with the proliferation of alcohol, unemployment, disempowered women, we are replicating that for generations to come. If we're going to fix our society, let's ask the very basics. How do we make sure families somewhat stay together? How do we make sure we stop the spread? Alcohol must be consumed responsibly.
Yep. But how do we change our mindset, bro? You know, I mean, one of the things that I've been frank about, you know, the one thing is that I personally wasn't raised by my biological father. But I experienced paternity through my stepfather.
Sure.
You know, and that bothered me as I was growing up.
Sure.
You know, and somehow I said to myself, when I grow up, I'm going to make sure that I look after my children.
Sure.
But I don't think, that thought was well dressed and what that meant, And I think because my father wasn't present, maybe what I need to do is be present in my children's lives. And I did that. But one thing that I experienced, because I never married the mother, but I was just present. And I think absent fatherhood also now took another thing for me, another, meaning or direction. Because one day, dealing with my son, I learned he's got 4 girlfriends, but at that time I've got 4 children with 4 different women.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as they say, the apple falling fair from the boma.
Yeah.
But I took my son down. I set my son down and said, "Hey, out here, you're going to number forward." No, we are.
Yeah.
But what I did is that I sort of break down what my life history has been like. I said, this is what I did. This is what I did. This is what I did. Now, because he came to live with me when he was 14. And I asked him the question, when you were growing up, didn't you wish that I was always there? My brother, I tell you, tears welled up in his eyes.
Sure.
And I said, you see? And I thought I was being better than my father. So for me, the thing is that, but how do you now? Somewhat I've sort of broken that cycle on my side.
Sure.
But how do we make it that the young boys of today begin to realize and maybe even begin to break that cycle by being present? What is it that we can do?
No, and I think this is where...
I guess you must ask questions to, we're together here. It's a song,
I mean, in many ways and in part, fine, we are not going to fix everything all at the same time.
Yeah.
But I think, the insight you give that says, I just knew I needed to be present.
Yeah.
Is vital. Yesterday I was celebrating my own father's birthday, and my father and I, the first time he asked me if I had a girlfriend, it was out of concern. He was saying to me, you are getting older. What's going on? You understand? That lake is if there's a problem. So. And we never sat down, perhaps maybe in that conversation about this is how you treat a woman. This is all of these things. And you need to create the conditions upon which. So the first thing, as I think, Kore, as men broadly in South Africa and society, it's incumbent upon us to think of ourselves and say, where are the young people in schools that we can sit down with and begin to offer some sense of mentorship? Because whilst I accept that society doesn't work in the way that it should, but young people have no one that they can ask tough questions to. As men, it becomes important that who I invite in my space. You can't convince me, or I am going to sit with my son and say, Bona ke treat all di la ho suo, or I'm behaving like this. But coming into the house is that uncle that we all know is beating up his wife, is doing all sorts of things. And then we say there is a point at which I'm going to play a significant role in my son's life until 16. When he leaves at that point, he's going to have other adults around him. And if I don't selectively think about who those adults are now, whether it's at church, whether it's at a soccer club, whether it's whatever, he must know if his coach is treating him, is communicating values that are inconsistent with mine, we must begin to fix those. So in part, there's a conversation to be had.
Yeah.
But the second part is, I think schooling is a vital component. Let us think about what role modeling we do. And I will be the first one to admit, part of the problem is when men like myself succeed, we leave Soweto. We come in and out, but we leave Soweto. Which often means in our streets and our townships, the people who are left to show role modeling are people who are krivulang, are people who believe women are products at times. And I'm generalizing, but we need to stick it out. When I grew up, at least in the 80s, people like agri-cluster, teachers, nurses were all part of the society. And you could engage with them because at the same time, they couldn't live elsewhere. No, we've got to reimagine our society and say, who are the role models who are living in townships, and give that dignity to townships so that it's a home for teachers, nurses, professionals, all of that. And no, society then says we've got role modeling that sits here. Yeah. And each one of us must be able to have that brotherhood of a young person that we sit with. The last thing, and Russell, and I think this is one of my craziest things I've been thinking about. I've thought, what if in a school, you said to all the boys, when they start school, I'm going to give all of you a savings account. As any parent, or you can do this, we put money into that account. Every child knows. When you get to matric, you can get this money. And we know financial instruments, we can raise that money so that it goes forward. When you finish school, that money is available for you. But the only way you can get it, you got to stay school, you got to finish school, you can't get anyone pregnant, and all the women in your class must vote that you deserve to get that money.
I like that.
That would be interesting.
Suddenly, because there is a behavioral psychology that says we must have loss aversion. Human beings are designed that way. They fear losing 100 rands more than winning 100. So you put it in before young boys. You say to them, it's there. Say from grade 1. Why born? Say it's there. But the only way you're going to get it, I'm telling you, suddenly behavior, they've got a prize at the end with which they must work towards. And females are then accountable to say, I'm gonna watch your behavior. Because there's at the same time, and I don't want to say this because this is such a serious issue. There are certain, I've heard it said, I've had to even correct. I also am a father to 2 girls. I must teach them, hey, you will never say in this household, I have to give her the dignity. When I celebrate my girls at home, I can't just say, my darling, you look beautiful today. And that's where it ends. That's not, I'm sorry. I must celebrate their beauty. But, I must say to her, you are a boss. So that I don't create the stereotyping that says women are less than in any way.
Talking about schooling, there's another thing that an analogy that I always make, or an example, that from grade 1 to grade 12, you're getting prepared for me to be a cog in the economic machine. Go to varsity, to heighten that preparation, and then after you've completed your degree, then you go to work. And now the ultimate role that you have to play as a man or a woman is that you are either going to be a mother and be somebody else's wife, or be a father and be somebody else's father. But that, for all your life, everything, for the certificates that you got, you had to go through the course.
Yeah.
But marriage is the one course where you get the certificate.
Yes.
Before you complete
arrive.
the course, you arrive. And then you are now finding yourself. I mean, and if you take that person who is an accountant or whatever, any problems of the world, he can solve. But when it comes to the home, because there wasn't any preparation. And now I'm wondering, can we have a situation where the preparation of the very ultimate role that you actually end up playing for the rest of your life, and which has so much responsibility, but you haven't been prepared for? Guys, so
yeah. But I think I must commend you on having started these conversations at a very young age with us. Because if there's one thing about my father, he's always created a space where we can talk about anything and everything. He's always said, if there's something that you feel you want to talk about, but you're not really sure whether you can, that is the very thing that you should come to me and speak about. Because I remember I tested this theory. I think it was 14. I was 14.
Yeah,
13, 14.
Yeah.
And on the radio. So he said he purposely
Actually,
put the radio.
like, yeah.
We were playing.
Fridays.
Yes.
Between 11 and 12.
Yes.
It's sex talk.
Right.
One thing that I used to do because of being Silo Makani by Chimroka, I would actually make sure that I go early, to go buy grocery.
Sure.
And then so that when they are coming, I'm getting out.
Sure.
And that's what I did. And when we got into the car, it was between 11 and 12, and the conversation was going back to you.
Yeah. So it was a sex talk. So I remember hearing.
And you remember the urologist? Who's that?
Dr. Eve.
No, the urologist. With his version, and he was going on. Go ahead.
And he was talking about ejaculation. So I'm like, yo, what's this word? I heard everything else, but but hey. So now I wasn't sure whether to actually ask the question, but I'm like, he said this, So let's try it out.
Yeah.
Also, because I think I was experiencing puberty, I was even telling him with, hey, I've got a problem, chief. I've got, I've just been experiencing random erections and it's worrying me now.
Yes.
No, but the first question you asked, asked, Baba, what is ejaculation?
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm actually
That's it.
And when we got home, we ended up having a broader conversation around that. And I think it's because of the environment that you created. And sometimes, I do feel that I'm very, very privileged. To have
it's an absolute privilege.
A big one. And I just wish that all young men could have this experience. Because I think now also, as you were saying, there's a barrier to youth not having anyone to speak to, because of African culture, not being able to about these sort of things, it's basically shunned upon.
I mean, I do think in part, as Africans, we've failed to live up to our culture. It's not the culture that nullifies the conversation. It's the execution of our culture that we have failed to do. This thing, Yoguti, young men should go to the mountain. We've now made it solely about circumcision. But what we haven't done is ask, is it not an opportunity to transfer values and say, now you're a man, you are going to behave like this. This is our expectation of you. when I was getting married, and my wife is a white South African, so it's not in a culture for this. Mar babitsa bomme ba re, "A re molai." And literally, I remember that more than any other thing. We sat there, Mahulu told us, hey, you will do 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it communicated value to her. When as fathers, rely our young boys. Now, for this period of your life, this is what I expect of you. This is the conduct. My son knows at home. He can do many things. Mari, if he raises his voice against his own mother or he hits his own sister, that is capital punishment in our home. You can do many other things. The levels. That's a level you don't because he must learn how violence doesn't resolve the situation. He's young, he's aggressive, so he must learn that. And he can only learn it because I've got to be disciplined about making sure. Nothing prepares you to be a father except that. Nothing teaches you how to act in that moment. And we've had to have some tough discussions. Sometimes I've had to come back and say, how I handled that situation wasn't quite right. Let's rethink about it and do it again. But having said all of that, I do think these conversations, that's why you are so privileged. That's why I say it's a privilege to have that.
We're privileged.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's admirable how your father took the decision to say, we're gonna open the door. You know, I can sit here and maybe they talk about television and all of that. One of my worries is I've got a young girl now, she's going into that age. I fear the day she comes to me and said, Daddy, you know, I've started my cycle. Even just thinking about it, I'm saying, yet my reaction to that situation is going to be important to affirm her or not affirm her. And as a father, I need to think about it, work it out, have a dress rehearsal with my wife. The day will come.
Be prepared for that.
Be ready. Because when it comes, it will affirm how I view her. And what I celebrate and what I don't celebrate. So we have to practice. But I just think, if we reimagine society, if you were to say to me, what should government do? I'd say educate. Educate boys in school, but make sure our girls get through school. We are, you know, the face of poverty in this country is black and female, which I can't separate. And I'm not a gender-based violence expert, but I can't separate economic emancipation of women from gender-based violence. If we're going to reform our society, we need to make sure we do that. We've put the burden on women to educate men for far too long. I think men, we need to step up our game. We need to have a conversation. We need to be clear. It starts, I'll never forget once, a young woman was dressed beautifully, dressing the road. This guy won't tell. There must be a point upon which I look at that guy and say, what you are communicating to that woman is wrong. But how many times do we not only have conversations with our sons, but around Kokasi, Kopra, and say, we don't talk about women, we don't talk about women like that. It's dishonoring to them.
Wow. And I'm glad that I have this opportunity, you know, like to call you honorable, Mmusi Maimane. It just feels good, you know, like I imagine myself like being in a, you know, parliament, you know, honorable Mmusi, you know. I don't know if he knows that. You know, like a plumber snake park. You know. I got to where I gotta, maybe some time. Hey, so.
But I think nobody that exists.
Yeah, I go Silver Town, man. You know, and one of the you've raised so many things, you know. And those things are affecting my community, my blockchain, you understand? And because of Lena, sometimes when I look at Kasiaka, just walking past and then seeing people, poverty, I think I don't see it in a flash. I see it in the mind, you know, or like, you know, what can we fix here? Because we have to start with the mind first. Because now feeding somebody food, you know, you're not helping that person.
Yeah.
Because now he's still gonna come back to you and ask for more. So I remember this quote, teach your son to fish. Don't give him a fish, you know. So what's happening right now? Ke bona go fuwa di-fish na. Re ja di-fish, whatever, re di ja. Ebile itse ke enjoy. I say, o kila bona o tlapela ke fish, man, you know. And fish ke buang ka yone is what is happening to our community.
Yeah.
Can we fix that? Can we help
That,
our
No,
community?
absolutely, man.
You know?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean,
You know,
one of the things we've lost.
you know what?
No.
We educate
Hey,
towards that time.
hey,
You know, when
alright,
it's getting all
The referee is
warmed up and we've got
optional
to wrap
time.
it up, you know.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, you know, and here's something that we're so good at. We're so good at coming up with catchphrases. We're going through a pandemic. And as we're going through this pandemic, then gender-based violence spikes. And we latch on to the word pandemic and we say we've got a shadow pandemic. But here's what we did. When we discovered that we have got a pandemic, we started implementing protocols, you know, to try and minimize the spread of this disease. Where are the protocols of GBV? And that's the question I'm asking. Where are and how can we even begin to start thinking up the protocols that will help us to deal with gender-based violence?
One of the protocols, learning from a previous virus of HIV, we insisted on is, remember we ran a whole testing thing. Go get yourself tested. We had a big thing. Everyone must go get tested. Everyone, and HIV was a big stigma. People just, you know, even still today.
90s,
But we've gotten used to it. Now, let me give you, Brazil, I want to give you a very practical example. Last week, I went to the police station. Must be, you know, when you say go test, I said, I want to find out if I'm on the sexual offenses register. So I went to the police station. I said, Kopalen, check in there. They did a name check. Fortunately, I wasn't in the criminals list. They said for you to check whether you're on the sexual offenses register, the fingerprint, we must post it to Pretoria, you must pay 150 rand and all of that. I thought, and it will take us 6 weeks. I thought someone could be a rapist and we'd never know. So when you say what are some of the protocols, that must be an immediate thing. Government has failed us in this regard. It must be immediate. That thing must be public. So that if my daughter wants to date you, ke checkile with daddy ke enterle ID number it's her website, even if I don't reveal your name. But if she gets your ID number, enters it there, and then what ha tla go ntlunga ha ke check a le nna ke re a o e fela o the ha ke ba tlo bona le ska.
I can imagine taba ya pricing. Why?
Okay, I don't think we're going to end.
You know, so that it must be just common.
But absolutely.
You know, common conversations.
Money. Thank you for honoring us with your presence, you know, and honoring us with amazing thoughts and things to take home, and how to find a way of reimagining this society, you know, a utopia of some sort. You know, because where we are now, it is very difficult. It is painful. When we look where our children are going to be inheriting a violent society, we've got to find setting up, you know, those little protocols, you know, of social, of behavioral change. Thank you very much. And boys, thank you very much. Well, you've seen for yourselves. We've come to the end, and it's always nicer, you know, when it's right at the end. It's like even when you're eating meat, you know, you know, the nearer the bone, the sweeter the meat. And basically we were just coming to that sweetness of conversation. But the major thing that we're coming out of with this conversation is that, and it's a repetition of what was said by Ihasheli Mhlobo, what Mawindota, ufanele uzinuka amakhwapha. It is time to self-reflect. It is time to self-correct. It is time to design a society that we want. I am Sello Makeka Ncube, and this is the time to say goodbye, sayonara.